Hello guys, today we will be talking about what if Naruto went back in time part 2. If you enjoy this video please like and subscribe. Now let's begin. He couldn't sleep that night. As he lay in his bed, his mind reeled. Going over again and again what had happened that day. What had happened a mere few hours before. He knew better. He knew better. He lay in bed, his eyes wide open. Blue eyes staring into the dark nothingness of his bare room. Mentally, he knew not to attack. His mind told him not to attack. And yet when Akashi had pushed him, when the larger boy had done what, as he remembered, countless other older bigger boys had done before, Naruto had snapped. His foot had lashed out, and before he knew it Akashi lay on the ground, a small puddle of blood pooling beneath his unconscious form. He sighed, and then with a grunt, swung his feet over the side of his bed. The cantankerous old matron had been furious. Her wrinkled face, just as deceivingly grandmotherly as he had remembered, warping into one of disdain. Her shrill voice shrieking at him for hurting poor Akashi. Once more he had felt rage fill him, but this time he could control it. This time it wasn't the mind-numbing fury, though it still made his blood boil. He remembered telling her numerous times about the bullies. About Akashi and his gang of cronies. About the shoving, and the beatings, and the name-calling. Yet, nothing had happened, it hadn't stopped, and after he told, it seemed to get worse. With his feet on the ground he started to quickly shuffle his way towards the kitchen. She'd sent him to bed without dinner as punishment, and he could feel his stomach rumbling for food. After sneaking down the stairs and into the small side hall, he was in the kitchen. He walked to the fridge, pulled it open, and took out an apple. Then he walked to the cupboard and pulled it open. He smiled when he saw a packet of ramen. He read it to see the flavor. At first, it seemed like glyphs for a few seconds, hard to comprehend and fully understand before becoming legible. Miso. He smiled. Miso was his favorite. Walking back to the cupboard he pulled out a tea kettle and a small towel used to wipe up spills. He filled up the kettle with water, set the towel atop it to hit its screech, and set it to boil. Then he sat and waited. He had an idea, though he wasn't too sure on how valid it was. He was an adult in mind, but as a child, his body reacted to things as children should. With extreme bouts of emotion. Mood swings would be constant for him. He'd have to start meditating again in an attempt to gain control of the raging hormones that now flooded his mind. With a crunch, he took a bite of his apple. He couldn't afford any more incidents like earlier this evening. He could feel the faint traces of Anba watching him where he hadn't before. No doubt Jai-san had already been informed about both events at school and at the orphanage. The result was that his new minders were meant to keep a watch on him and keep him out of further trouble. More bites of the sweet red fruit, spilling its juice into his mouth. He heard the muted shriek of the kettle and smiled. He finished the last bites of the apple and threw it away. Taking the cup of instant ramen and pouring the water inside he waited the 3 minutes for it to boil. When it was done he ate and then threw the cup of ramen away as well, making sure to bury it beneath other trash. Uzumaki-san shows incredible prowess for his first day at the academy. He seemed to be able to follow a lesson or discussion with only half his attention on said subject at the time. What his mind was occupied with I am unsure. He shows startling mental comprehension abilities for one of his age, though to what extent is yet unknown as standardized tests have not yet been deployed to test the student's capabilities, though he is without a doubt sure to score incredibly high. Not only that, but Uzumaki-san shows an inherent capability to learn things quickly. With the kunai throwing exercise, he not only managed to score an exceptionally high score for one of his age, 10 out of 12 hits, but he managed to do so after only throwing a kunai 3 times to judge its weight and capabilities. Uzumaki-san shows inherent qualities of genius. It is suggested that special attention be paid attention to him in order to make sure he receives the training he deserves. The elderly Cage gave a small smile as he read through the report. It would seem genius was inheritable, especially if both of one's parents were geniuses. Perhaps he should pay the boy a visit. He hadn't seen the lad since he was 5. Nearly a year, no doubt the boy had forgotten him. But, with the boy entering the academy and the incident that had happened just earlier that evening, a visit would seem warranted. He took his pipe from a small pocket he kept in his vest. Filled it with the sweet-tasting strawberry tobacco his wife had bought for him shortly before her death, so many years before, and lit it. He took a deep puff of it and smiled, then he picked up the second report. Report 11 Seagull Reporting Unit, codename Giraffe. It should be noted that Akashi-kun has been reprimanded before for bullying both his peers and others younger than himself. It should also be noted that, while the orphanage matron has helped put a stop to Akashi's bullying of other orphans, Uzumaki-kun's torment seemed to continue. It would seem that the orphanage made it clear that Akashi-kun was to do as he wished with Uzumaki-kun, as long as the others were left alone. From what we could gather from the incident, it appears Akashi-kun was the instigator, choosing to assault Uzumaki-kun when Uzumaki-kun simply wished to be left alone. The resulting fight was quick, if somewhat brutal. After Akashi-kun's initial attack on Uzumaki-kun, Uzumaki went on the assault, leaving Akashi-kun with a concussion, multiple abrasions, a broken nose, and a fractured rib. From what we have gathered from the other orphans and Akashi-kun, Uzumaki seemed unhesitant in his assault, doing his best to quickly down his larger opponent before going on a short but brutal assault. It should be noted Uzumaki-san seems to show inherent fighting capabilities, if not a lack of hesitance, to finish a downed opponent. The elderly Cage frowned a bit. While children fought, and sometimes brutally so, they tended to be hesitant of fighting one another, despite their bolstering. Naruto-kun's lack of hesitance to finish a downed opponent was not normal. He would, without a doubt, be seeing young Naruto-kun tomorrow morning. He pulled out a crystal ball and charged a small amount of chakra through it. He concentrated, and then an image of a small boy laying in a forest appeared before him. He frowned. Children shouldn't be disappearing into the night by themselves, especially not children containing Biju. He made a hand sign, and an Anbu appeared before him. Owl, get to squad 4 and ask them why young Naruto-kun is outside at 11 at night. A swoosh of wind and the Anbu disappeared. The elderly Cage leaned back in his seat, took a long deep inhale of his tobacco. Giraffe, make me some tea please. Owl reappeared in a flurry of wind and smoke. Report. It would appear Uzumaki-kun snuck out after stealthily grabbing himself a meal. Why would he need to grab himself a meal? Has the mate? It would appear that as punishment he was sent to bed without dinner. From what she has gathered, this is slandered punishment for him, and he is often punished. Usually for minor offenses. He seems to be malnourished from this as a result. The elderly Cage frowned, then took a deep, long inhale of the smoke in his pipe. You know, Owl, I've had children of my own. And, as I'm aware, you too have children. He stopped for a moment, his gaze peering into the Anbu's face. Tell me what you think of a child being mistreated under the guise of punishment. It's an injustice, Hokage-sama. A blight upon the face of the world and our village. Children should be treated like treasures. I want all appointments for tomorrow morning rescheduled either to the day after tomorrow or late in the evening. If they can reschedule, offer them sincerest apologies and a promise give them priority when they have a more convenient time for us to meet. Hi, Hokage-sama. XXX starting Smalls. He woke up in cold wet water. With a groan he stumbled to his feet to wearily look around. He was in a sewer he knew too well. The dark wet place smelled with the rank smell of blood. Thick pipes, each red and blue, lined the wall, though the red pipes continually leaked into their blue counterparts. The water level rose up to his waist. It was higher than he remembered, or maybe it was because he was a child now. With some concentration he rose to the top of the water and started his slow walk towards the home of his closest friend. That's if you could call the sewer prison a home, and the massive demon fox he occasionally got along with, a friend. After a few minutes he appeared before the massive cage. The bars towered over his head, massive steel pillars that went higher than he could see. The gate was closed, though the seal that held it was now gone. He smiled. Karama. There was no response. He frowned, went closer to the bars and peered into their dark depths. A claw hand tried to slam down on his head, and he barely managed to get back in time. His small form went leaping backwards, sending his golden hair flying and his cloth swaying in the wind of his mind. He scowled when he heard the laughter of the fox echo throughout his mind. You're so tiny now, I couldn't help myself. So Vu tried to kill me? What if it had failed and I hadn't managed to come back? What if it was just child me? It wasn't though. So your questions are moot. So, I can't believe you actually managed to pull it off, or they even let you do it, but with your luck, I'm not too surprised. Naruto smiled at the fox. I told you it would work. I didn't think it wouldn't. I just believed you would find some way to fuck it up, and we'd end up too far back or not far back enough. And, looking at your stature, I was right. The fox smiled at him. Large red eyes staring down, and wide man-sized teeth shining against a deep black of his cell. Naruto laughed, then placed a hand behind his hand in embarrassment. I traveled through time, cut me a break, man. I don't exactly have experience with it. The fox raised an eyebrow in surprise. You? Worried? It laughed a bit. Its deep voice echoing throughout the cavernous sewers of his mind. What for? I'm not acting like myself, well, my older self anyways. Today I got in a fight. That seems just like you. No, I mean, I knew I had to ignore the kid. Just walk on and go by, but when he pushed me I lost it. I haven't been that angry that fast in years. I don't know what's going on. I knew I shouldn't have done it. Yet I did anyway. That's not like me. I'm not human, and my knowledge of human emotions and what affects them are limited. I don't think or feel like you. I'm made out of chakra after all. The chemical reactions that affect you, well, they don't affect something like me at all. Naruto frowned and then sat down. He ran a palm through the water beneath him, sending ripples in all directions. He looked back up at the fox, then back at the water. So, have your plans changed? I mean, the original plan was to wait around a few years for Obito to reveal himself and try keep Sasuke around if we could. You know, hearing it from you, it wasn't really too well defined now that I think about it. Neither of us are one for planning. The fox was quiet. What about the Uchiha? I can't do anything about the Uchiha. I'm too small, too weak. Just useless in general. And if I could do anything, then what? Stop the Uchiha massacre and have a civil war break out that tears apart Konoha? Tell people I'm from the future, prove it, and they get mind raped for information about the future? I started trying to befriend Sasuke today, and that's the only thing to do. Try to change Sasuke, or at least take care of him, if he tries to pull the same stunts he did last time. I mean, I can't do anything. He frowned, then let out a long, deep sigh. I'm still contemplating whether I should try to keep things the same or just go whole hog and say fuck it to the whole thing. Go for it. If you're willing to pull back the veil of time and space, why walk on eggshells? Stop acting like a newborn kid afraid of his own tail. The fox was right. He'd come this far, why hold back? He'd go all in. Damn the consequences, he'd change things to how he thought they ought to go. XXX staring Smolsky woke up to the old matron towering over him, a scowl on her face. She looked at the open window in his room, then back at him. From where he lay he could see the deep-set wrinkles, the silver hair slowly turning a stark white, the deep cracked lines in her face. She sneered at him, showing white teeth against red gums. Get up, boy, and get ready. The Hokage is coming to see you this morning. Hurry, she looked at the window one more time. And keep that window closed at night, you'll let out all the cold air. She went to his closet, pulled out a white t-shirt and small brown khakis, and then tossed them on his bed along with a comb. Put these on after you bathe yourself. Make sure to comb your hair too, it's a rat's nest. With that she shuffled out of his tayuts. Later he let the bathroom freshly bathed, his teeth brushed, and the clothing she'd given him on. He combed his wet hair then went downstairs. The matron was waiting, and so was the old man. The old man seemed massive. Like a giant he seemed to tower over him. The presence of the elderly Cage woke up emotions and memories long since buried. For a moment he thought he was going to lose it. He felt sorrow swell in his chest, felt his eyes water, his body quiver in pain, then he reeled it in. Grabbing hold of those emotions and bolting them down. He was better than this, better than losing control in front of this man. He took one deep, long breath. Hello, Hokage-sama. The old man seemed surprised, then smiled a bit wider. He looked at the orphanage matron, and she quickly shuffled away. He hit a snicker, hello there, Naruto-kun. The old man extended a hand, and Naruto complied with a hand of his own. Hokage-sama, I'm not sure if this will come off rude, but can I ask why you want to speak with me? Once again the Hokage seemed surprised, then mildly pleased. I received some reports that said you displayed quite a bit of talent yesterday. I enjoy speaking with the possible talents, and the fact that you're an orphan piqued my interests quite a bit more. Tell me, Naruto-kun, have you eaten breakfast yet? No. Then, why don't we walk to a restaurant I know? It serves rather good tea, maybe we can get to know